Hello, everyone, and welcome to the U.S. Center. My name is Tom DiLiberto. I'm a climate scientist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and I'm one of two masters of ceremony here at the U.S. Center for the full 2 weeks of COP. I'm very excited to have you all here at the high-level opening of the U.S. Center at COP 28. But before we get started, I'd like to invite our speakers on stage for a group photo. And now, a video from Vice President Kamala Harris and other leaders in the U.S. government.
Hurricanes are getting stronger, wildfires are spreading faster, sea levels are rising. Let's make no mistake, there is a climate crisis, and the United States is committed to acting now and acting together. Because the truth is, our world is more interconnected and interdependent than ever before. And the only way to combat this climate crisis is together.
The climate crisis is an unprecedented global challenge. That also makes it a powerful opportunity for the world to work together like never before. The United States is committed to leading on this issue by building on our closest partnerships and creating lasting new ones. We're working with other countries to raise our climate ambitions during this critical decade for action. If we succeed, we will build a healthier, more secure, more equitable, and more sustainable global community and protect this magnificent planet that we share.
It's simple. We need immediate, sustained, and robust action to reach net zero emissions by 2050. And that means by the end of this decade, we need reliable, affordable, clean energy that reaches the most populated valleys and the remotest mountains, across the hottest deserts and the coldest tundra. The Department of Energy is working with counterparts around the world to embrace bold, innovative ideas. Together, we can scale renewable energy, we can commercialize carbon capture, make batteries more affordable, and make clean hydrogen market-ready.
In the United States, transportation is the single largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. But that also means it can be a big part of the solution. The Department of Transportation is positioning America to drive the future of electric vehicles. We're working toward an ambitious new target. By 2030, half of all new vehicles sold should be zero emission. We need every country, along with the private sector, to work together to create the transportation sector of tomorrow, from our waters to our roads to our skies. And this is just the beginning.
We have an undeniable obligation to our children and future generations. The Department of the Interior is committed to protecting our lands, waters, and resources, to enacting ambitious climate policies to lift marginalized communities around the world. We have unleashed a whole-of-government response to tackle the climate crisis and will continue to push for conservation that restores balance to lands, animals, plants, waters, and all things that sustain life.
The Department of Commerce is working hard to bolster technological innovation, a critical factor in achieving a net zero, climate resilient economy. Working together with the private sector, we can drive clean technology innovation forward. The economic benefits of bold climate action are enormous. They'll generate millions of good-paying jobs and better technology for communities around the world.
The climate crisis is already impacting agriculture and aquaculture around the world and threatening global food security. With increasing numbers of storms, droughts, floods, heat waves, and devastating wildfires, we need to act now to protect our crops and the farmers and fishers who bring food to our table. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is committed to tackling this crisis head-on, and together we can build more sustainable and resilient food systems around the world.
Climate change is here and hitting countries hard. The United States Agency for International Development helps countries develop drought-resistant seeds and resilient infrastructure to withstand a changing climate. We partner with the private sector to invest in green energy to cut global emissions, and we race to save lives after climate shocks occur. As our climate changes, America's commitment to helping those in need does not waver.
The climate crisis knows no borders, and neither does the pollution that causes it. The Environmental Protection Agency is taking bold action to limit the pollutants that cause climate change, from vehicles to appliances, and we're just getting started. We have a long road ahead, but together we can create a healthier planet for people around the world.
Generations from now, I believe that we will be able to look back on this moment as the moment when our world joined together to combat the climate crisis, to protect our planet, and to build a better future for all of us. Let's get to work.
It's my honor to introduce Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, Secretary John Kerry.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming and joining us for the opening of the U.S. Center. We're delighted to be here. I think I was watching that with all of you, and it just struck me what a powerful cabinet, what a powerful group of allies we have within the U.S. government, and it's thanks to President Biden's all-of-government effort here that I think the United States really does have the right to point to an incredible array of new programs, new efforts, all of which are going to have an impact in reducing emissions and putting us on track to hold on to that magic 1.5 degree limit in the rise of temperature. So I'm really happy to be here for the announcement of this opening here in Dubai, COP28. And for those of us who have been doing this for a while, I know Gina McCarthy, the former senior advisor, is here, and she and I, John Podesta and others have been at more COPs than we want to count. And it would be wonderful if we sort of came to the point where we could say, well, we're at the COP that's going to tie the bow and the ribbon and deliver it home. We're not there yet, obviously. And there's a reason we're here in Dubai at this moment of intense choice for people all around the world. We know what's happening. There is no mystery to this. It's a fairly straightforward and regrettably human-induced series of events that are taking place because we refuse to move rapidly around this planet to shift from the burning of fossil fuels that regrettably, unabated, go up into the atmosphere and create this challenge. That's where it comes from. No mystery. You don't have to wait around for somebody to figure out a new algorithm or come up with a new code. This is straightforward. So over the next 2 weeks, this center is going to host more than 70 events in an effort to try to help bring people to the table and show them what we are doing and help us to try to excite people to raise their ambition and do more to try to achieve our goals. Thousands of people are going to join us online. And as you just saw in the video, I think Vice President Harris is going to be here later today as part of this all-of-government effort. But you see that tackling this crisis is not the duty of one agency versus another. It's everybody. We have to do everything in every single agency we have possible. And we all know what's happening. I'm not going to go through the long list except to underscore. In the Arctic this summer, it was 70 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. In the Antarctic, it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And now we've seen a massive ice sheet that was stuck in the mud because of its size and weight that is melting, and so it's risen more to the surface and it's moving. And it will move and melt. And that will contribute much more significantly than people anticipated to sea level rise. Everything is compounding on itself. The fires, the drought, the floods, run the list. And so this is a test of whether or not we as human beings have the ability to actually look, see, interpret what we're seeing, and then act on what we know to be the truth. And not hide it, not provide this information that moves in a different direction. So the upside, I think, right now with respect to this challenge, I feel optimistic. I really do. I'm not saying that for the sake of saying it. I'm here in Dubai with a sense that something different is really happening. And I think you saw that on the first day when we resolved a very complicated, prickly issue on day one. That's never happened before. That we've been able to come out and say, hey, there is a fund for the impact of climate that is going to be dealing with response in a normal sort of humanitarian way. And we think that's important. We left Sharm el-Sheikh keeping 1.5 degrees alive, at least conceptually, and certainly in a lot of the things we were doing. And we took major steps, both in Glasgow and in Sharm el-Sheikh, since Paris, to implement the things we need to do in order to achieve our goals. Now we have to build on those outcomes here in Dubai over these next 2 weeks. And we're going to work with over 190 parties to the Paris Agreement to advance global cooperation on emissions reductions, adaptation, climate finance, and the other parts of the Paris Agreement, and also the Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan, which the IEA tells us, if we fully implement the promises that we have made at those meetings, by 2050, we would be at 1.8 degrees or 1.7, depending on how we do that in terms of the warming. That's not a message to anybody that we can pull back, that we can reduce our efforts. It is a message that it's possible to win this battle if we will just do the things that we have to do to get that extra 2.2 degrees centigrade differential. So, we have arrived here in Dubai with, and you'll hear from the other speakers, with the ability to really say to people that the United States has a plan, we are executing that plan, and we're on track to be able to do our part to meet the ambitious goal of keeping 1.5 degrees alive. And we're working with other countries to help them to be able to get there. So there are three top mitigation policies, priorities, let me say. One, transition to net zero systems by 2050. Two, ending deforestation by 2030. And three, rapidly reducing methane and other non-CO2 super pollutants. On all three of those things, my friends, we are taking a lead. We've taken the lead with respect to transition to net zero by raising our ambition and getting others to submit NDCs or change their NDCs all around the world. In addition, on deforestation, we put together the Forest Leaders Climate Partnership, which is bringing people to the table to end deforestation by 2028 or 2030 at the latest. We also today will be making major announcements regarding methane reduction. It is the most destructive gas. There's now what we call fugitive gas, where you have, just because of the thawing of the permafrost, massive amount of methane which has been trapped for 40,000 years, now going up into the atmosphere and causing damage. And for the first 20 years or so, methane is 80 to 100 times more damaging than CO2. And then afterwards, it's about 20 times more. So obviously we have to face this. Over the next couple of weeks, literally several thousand people will come through this center, and we will share with them and invite them. We'll share with them what we're doing and invite them to become part of this battle. So everybody here have already demonstrated a commitment by being here, and we thank you for that. I'm very honored to be in this fight with all of you and to be able to work together to create progress here in the UAE. And I hope you will feel the full measure to which President Biden has kept his promise and applied himself to this task. He said this would be all of government. Believe me, it's all of government. We have the first ever all-governmental task force chaired by John Podesta, bringing all of us together, and we have a team that has been working together to implement the policies that will make a difference. We created, together with friends, Norway and a few others, the Global Shipping Challenge. If shipping were a country, it would be the 8th largest emitter in the world. Well, now we have ships that are being built that are carbon-free, and we have a massive effort. We met with the industry yesterday, which will transition all shipping over the next 20 years into carbon-free vessels. An unbelievable move. We created the methane pledge. President Biden announced it in Glasgow, and that was the challenge which people are now coming to the table to meet. We have done an innovation and agriculture initiative. We have the First Movers Coalition initiative, where big corporations are buying green now to send a demand signal to the marketplace. All of this will be on display here at the center and in all of the activities that we're being engaged in here. So it's my pleasure now to introduce to you somebody who has extraordinary, vast experience in this field. He's been doing this for a long time. He's the senior advisor to President Biden, and my pleasure to introduce John Podesta.
Wow, thank you, Secretary Kerry. Thank you so much. I think I'm more energized after that, and I hope everybody in this audience is too. I want to thank you for your tremendous leadership. It's great to be here with you. You're not just a climate champion, as you just demonstrated, for the United States, but for the entire world. It's an honor to be here with you. We're gathering at the end of the year that's been defined by the climate crisis. Across the globe, July 4th was the warmest day on record. July was the hottest month. That was followed by the hottest August, September, and October. Just yesterday, the World Meteorological Organization confirmed that this year will be virtually certain to be the hottest year on record. But it may be one of the coolest years that any of us experience for the rest of our lives. In the United States, rising temperatures manifested into a record number of climate disasters causing over $1 billion in 2023, from the devastating fires in Maui to the catastrophic flooding in Vermont and New York, to 31 straight days of temperatures over 110 degrees in Phoenix. And that's just in the U.S., where we have resources to adapt, but we still struggle to keep up with the barrage of climate disasters. I could do a turn around the world as well, from Hurricane Otis in Mexico, Canada's summer wildfires, horrific flooding in Ghana, Kenya, Somalia, Pakistan, India, scorching heat across Europe. Many countries around the world don't have enough resources to deal with these events and need additional support. The truth is, the climate crisis is already here, and we know what we need to do to create a livable future for ourselves and for our children. As the IPCC said in their 2018 1.5 degree report, we need to get to net zero by mid-century. We need to be taking as much greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere as we're putting into it, and that will require a transformation of the global economy on a size and scale that's never occurred in human history. Let me repeat from that report. A transformation of the global economy on a size and scale that's never occurred in human history. That's our challenge. It's a daunting task, to say the least, but it's a challenge that President Biden and Vice President Harris have taken on since their first day in office. The President set an ambitious science-based goal of cutting our carbon pollution by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. He painted a vision of a United States powered by 100% clean electricity in 2035, a net zero economy by 2050, and then he backed that up with those targets with real action through his Investing in America agenda. The bipartisan infrastructure law makes the biggest investment in our nation's infrastructure in history, including our electric grid and next-generation clean energy industries like green hydrogen and direct air capture. The CHIPS and Science Act invests in semiconductors, a crucial ingredient for zero-emission technologies. And, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act makes the largest investment in clean energy action in history. Together, these laws have unleashed clean energy manufacturing and deployment boom in the United States. Since President Biden and Vice President Harris took office, the private sector has announced $226 billion for clean energy manufacturing and $132 billion in utility-scale clean power deployment investments. All of this activity creates good-paying jobs. It means clean air and clean water for communities who've borne the brunt of pollution. It brings economic opportunity to communities often left out and left behind, creating lasting change that's hard to uproot. And it speeds up a cycle of innovation and that expands beyond our borders, lowering costs and accelerating deployment of clean energy, not just in the United States, but across the globe. The Boston Consulting Group projects that the Inflation Reduction Act will drive down the cost of many clean energy technologies by as much as 25%, helping speed deployment across the globe. And the Rhodium Group just recently found that every ton of carbon pollution reduced in the U.S. because of the Inflation Reduction Act will slash up to 2.9 tons of carbon pollution outside the U.S. because we're deploying that cheaper technology. It's why we believe the Inflation Reduction Act should drive other nations to increase their own climate ambition while reassuring the world that the U.S. is doing our part. Today at 3 p.m., I'll be hosting a deep dive event here at the U.S. Center on the Inflation Reduction Act and how it's building a global clean energy economy by investing in workers and communities. So I hope you'll come back and join us for that. But for now, I'll leave you with this. President Biden and Vice President Harris are treating climate change as the crisis that it is, from implementing his signature climate law to protecting more lands and waters in his first year than any precedent since JFK. Their leadership could not come at a more important time. The task of transforming our global economy on an unprecedented size and scale may be daunting, but it is our imperative. The United States is doing our part to make that transformation happen, and when we achieve it, a clean, healthy, more prosperous, and a more equitable future awaits us all. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to introduce our EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, who has done an amazing job of transforming his agencies to not only dramatically reduce pollution and improve public health, but to do it with an historic focus on justice for communities who have often borne the brunt of that pollution. Mike.
Thank you, John, for that introduction. And John, thank you for your steadfast service over these many years. It's truly inspiring. On behalf of the United States Environmental Protection Agency, I'm humbled to stand before you all today as we open the United States Center. On his first day in office, President Biden launched the most progressive climate agenda in United States history. And since then, as John and John have mentioned, the Biden-Harris administration has taken historic action and worked with global leaders to tackle the climate crisis. While we work with nations around the world to reduce global emissions in line with the 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway, President Biden has indeed deployed an all-of-government approach to cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. And he's vowed to do so while protecting the environmental rights and integrity of our nation's most vulnerable people. EPA is at the very center of President Biden's whole-of-government approach to reducing emissions. And on day one as administrator, I directed my team to push as far and as fast as possible to deliver on the promises of the President's agenda. We recognize the weight of President Biden's charge. We acknowledge our obligation to the people of our country and our planet. And most importantly, we understand the urgency of the moment. We must act now to protect our planet and to protect our future. And that's exactly what we've been doing at EPA. We've been hard at work, and we have no intentions of slowing down. We're making progress on phasing out our climate super pollutants, HFCs. These dangerous pollutants can have a climate impact thousands of times stronger than carbon dioxide. And we're phasing out United States production and consumption by 85%. In April, our agency proposed new pollution standards for cars, for trucks, and for heavy-duty vehicles that, when finalized, would set the strongest pollution standards for greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful air pollutants in EPA's history. This action, as proposed, would reduce over 9 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. In May, EPA proposed new technology standards that would significantly reduce greenhouse gas pollution from fossil fuel power plants. When finalized, these standards are expected to avoid 775 million metric tons of carbon dioxide through the year 2042. And we're looking forward to sharing more about our standards to cut methane emissions from oil and gas sources while accelerating reduction technologies and bolstering innovation. The United States is leading by example on global climate action as we move quickly to advance these ambitious standards to protect people's health while combating the climate crisis. All of this important work is supported by unprecedented funding from both the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, thanks to President Biden's leadership. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is a once-in-a-generation investment that is changing the physical landscape while tackling pollution, from building a climate-resilient water infrastructure to decarbonizing our nation's school bus fleet. The Inflation Reduction Act is the most ambitious climate legislation in United States history, and simply put, is a game changer for our nation's strategy to mitigate emissions. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, EPA received over $41 billion, billion with a B, to confront the climate crisis and deliver life-changing investments to communities all across the country. And one of the most innovative provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act was the creation of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is a $27 billion, first-of-its-kind program designed to catalyze billions of dollars in private sector investment, scaling the deployment of clean energy technologies nationally, building clean community financing capabilities, and spurring the adoption of clean technologies. We also know that reducing greenhouse gas emissions depend not only on EPA's ability to mitigate the effects of climate change, but our capacity to adapt and deliver targeted assistance to ensure communities and local governments across the country have the resources they need to meet their unique climate challenges. That's why, thanks to President Biden's Justice 40 initiative, 40% of Bill and IRA funding will go directly to communities that have long borne the burden of pollution and environmental injustice. We also know that climate mitigation and adaptation are essential components of our strategy to reduce the threats and impacts of climate change. There's no doubt there's a significant challenge facing our country and our world, but despite all, we will overcome. I also recognize we have a tremendous opportunity to change the course of our future. We have the opportunity to partner with global leaders on ambitious action to protect communities around the world from the worst impacts of climate change, and we have the opportunity for unprecedented economic growth. We have an opportunity to establish new and innovative technology, and we have an opportunity to safeguard our future and protect our planet for ourselves and for our children. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn things over to NOAA Chief Scientist, Dr. Sarah Kapnick.
Thank you, Administrator Reagan, for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm honored to join you at the opening of the U.S. Center here at COP28. As world leaders gather here over the following days, we do so against the backdrop of a warming world. According to NOAA's global temperature data, October was the 5th month in a row of record warming temperatures. 2023 is undoubtedly on track to being one of the warmest years on record. And along with these elevated temperatures, we have experienced numerous damaging and costly extreme weather events that underscore the risks we will continue to face in the decades to come if emissions continue to rise. As noted in the recently released 5th National Climate Assessment, the effects of climate change are already far-reaching in every single corner of the United States. The challenges we confront are daunting, and they demand our collective resolve, but they also require us to continue to foster a sense of hope that propels us forward in the fight of one of the greatest existential threats of our time. As a climate scientist and as a member of the Biden-Harris administration, I know that President Biden and the U.S. are committed to leading by example, both in reducing our own emissions and in supporting global efforts to mitigate and adapt to the impacts of climate change. At NOAA, we are at the forefront of understanding and monitoring these changes. Our researchers and partners work tirelessly to unravel the complexities of climate dynamics and provide the crucial data to inform sound policy decisions. NOAA's work on climate information services worldwide, including through the President's Emergency Plan on Adaptation and Resilience, or PREPARE, helps to increase the capacity of countries to understand, anticipate, and prepare for the impacts of extreme weather and public health and safety. Knowing this gives me great hope. The expectation is that the magnitude and the strength of these types of storms, the probabilities will increase with all the continued emissions. And so knowing information in advance is how we reduce those impacts and bounce back faster. The global community gathered here this week, an incredible 70,000 people are expected, also gives me hope. We have come together at COP28 representing diverse nations and perspectives, united by a common purpose, to safeguard our planet for current and future generations. As we engage in discussions over the coming days, let us be guided by the best available science. It not only reveals the magnitude of the challenges we face, but also illuminates the path forward. We must embrace evidence-based decision-making, prioritize sustainability, and foster international collaboration to be able to amplify our impact. The U.S. Center at COP28 serves as a hub for dialogue, for knowledge exchange, and collaboration. It is a space where ideas converge and partnerships are forged. Let us leverage this platform to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable and resilient future. It is heartening to witness the collaborative spirit and the innovation currently on display. Let it motivate us to be bold and ambitious in our commitments, to hold ourselves accountable, and to work tirelessly to combat climate change every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again to all of our speakers. That concludes our first event here, the high-level opening of the U.S. Center. But we have a lot going on not only today here, but also the rest of the 2 weeks. Make sure you know what the schedule is at state.gov/COP28, or take a photo of any of the QR codes, that's the word, QR codes situated around the venue. The next event here at the U.S. Center will be at 10:15. Thank you once again all for coming.